Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Guys Who Stare at Stats. Cade Kennedy with you alongside Tyler Riggs. The first round of the college football playoffs are finally here, Tyler. And I mean, this is something that you go all the way back to our videos in August. We've been waiting to see what would happen once we finally get to this time. And what a fun season it's been building up to this thing, but we've got 4 great games to talk about.
Yeah, the committee, for these matchups, I thought did a pretty good job. A lot of good storylines coming into them. And as always, I'm sure everybody will react to these wins or losses in this playoff system as a whole with the proper, lukewarm, normal,
No one's
normal
going to
thing.
overreact to any of these games. Yeah,
No,
I'm
no,
sure.
not at all. Not
I'm
at all.
sure.
So I can't wait. I can't wait.
Absolutely. But right before we get into the predictions, as always, feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. 115 subscribers now. Let's see if we can try to push it and get to 120 before the end of the month. Try to maybe even 125 if we can get lucky enough. But comments-wise, always, we do appreciate it. We do read every comment that you post down there. Just try to continue the discussion down there. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like, what you think's going to happen. Are we wrong? Are we terrible at predictions? We do want to know. But Tyler, the first game to get into, I think for most people, this is the most intriguing matchup. Tennessee going up to the shoe to play Ohio State. Buckeyes 7.5-point favorites in this one. And I mean, there's a lot that's been going on, this week about this thing. We're recording this thing Wednesday night. So, there's been a lot of talk of Tennessee fans trying to invade Ohio State Stadium. There's been the whole, hey, don't sell your tickets to a Tennessee fan if you're an Ohio State person. I think I saw an estimate that maybe 25 to 30% of the crowd will probably be wearing orange for this one. Tennessee fans travel insanely well. They will make their voices heard. I saw that firsthand this year when they came to Norman. They're a very passionate, very loud fan base. Ohio State is too. And one of the other factors, this doesn't mean as much for Tennessee as some of the other games we'll talk about. Game time temperature Saturday night of 28 degrees. You want to talk about football weather? That's football weather, Tyler.
Oh, yes, it is. Should be a very fun environment for that game. No doubt about it.
Absolutely. But of course, the winner of this one will play Oregon as the number 1 seed, how that'll match up here. But Tyler, I mean, just the kind of way you look at this thing, the stat that I always go into is defensive and offensive efficiency. That's something that I always look about. If you've watched any of these prediction videos, that's something I always harp on. And these two teams, it's absolutely amazing. Tennessee, defensive efficiency, number 3 in the country. Ohio State's defensive efficiency, if I can talk correctly real quick, right behind them at number 4. These are 2 of the most efficient defenses in the country you are going to see. They are both amazing at stopping the run, both top 8 in terms of rushing defense, only giving up less than 100 rushing yards a game. I mean, these are 2 amazing defenses when it comes to what their front 7 can do. Tennessee gives up 34 more passing yards on average than Ohio State. Keep in mind the Buckeyes are second in the country when it comes to passing yards, given up only 144 per game. Tennessee, though, the thing I'm intrigued to see about them is how well are they going to be able to attack Ohio State's bigs up front, because you've got, of course, the man we've talked about a lot, Dylan Sampson. Amazing running back for Tennessee. Tennessee top 10 in rushing offense, 232 on the ground. That's about what they average out every single game. Ohio State a little bit better passing wise. It's just going to be one of those games, I think, where, you kind of get more physical as the season goes on. I think the weather will help in that. The real matchup to me is going to be, can Tennessee penetrate Ohio State's defensive line? If Dylan Sampson can get going, I think Tennessee can get the job done.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the story for them because Eli Amaliva sometimes is a little inconsistent. Nico's been up and down. We've talked about that a lot on this channel, but typically for Tennessee, when they're able to establish Dylan Sampson, like I said, that creates a lot of problems for other teams because he is just a workhorse. He's really some fun to watch, and Josh Heupel, to his credit, is really settled into saying, "Hey, I'm going to buy into more of a control system, right? Where they're going to come in, they're going to measure their shots, and it's not just going to be allowed all the time." So that's really helped Tennessee reach this point, and I'm curious to see, how Ohio State responds to that because, the Oregon game, bit of a shootout, right? Kind of up and down. can they be able to grind it out and hold off a very, what I think is going to be an apt Tennessee squad?
Absolutely. The other thing I look at, talked a lot about defensive efficiency. Let's look at that on the other side. You look at offensive, what it puts up. Ohio State, number 5 in total offensive efficiency, and that makes sense. We talked about Tennessee on their side of running the ball. Quinshon Judkins for Ohio State, Travion Henderson, both amazing backs to have at your disposal. Jeremiah Smith, an amazing young wide receiver. Ohio State is obviously going to have the weapons. They're always going to have weapons. I think the thing, though, this is something we've talked about how many times on this show already, Tyler. Will Ohio State have that slow start? It is the Achilles heel for the Buckeyes this year that they take that entire first quarter to not just feel the game out, but it takes them that whole 15 minutes to wake up. You cannot do this in this kind of game. Ohio State fans are already mad about how the Michigan game went. There are going to be a lot of Tennessee fans there. You do not want to give the Vols the edge in this thing early on. If that happens, I don't want to say this is going to get ugly. I think this will be a really competitive game. This should be, at least in my opinion, the best game of the first round. But if you do that, it puts you in a really big bind. And then the other situation, you touched on it a little bit, the quarterback battle. Nico Iamaleava, how is he going to handle playing at a place like Ohio State? He's been in some tough environments before. I don't think that's much of a factor. Will Howard, you've heard me call him Wild Card Will how many times on this show? He is a very inconsistent quarterback when it comes to these big moments. Both teams having some time to take a little bit of figuring this out. It's not the normal 1 week, of course. Tyler, is it crazy enough to say that I think Tennessee is going to come in here and beat Ohio State? Because the more I think about this game, the more I think about all the factors going into this, I like Tennessee to get the job done at Ohio State.
Kate, I don't think it's crazy, but boy, what a scenario that would create. What happens truly to Ryan Day so far? Everything that's been said from university leadership is that, hey, this is our guy. We're back no matter what. That conversation could change should your prediction become correct, and I can see it happening. I think this game really comes down to who gets the better start. Both these teams have struggled with starts, right? In terms of their first halves, first quarters, you name it. So I think there is a scenario where Tennessee, with their style we've talked about, being able to say, hey, you know what? We're not afraid to grind out a game. They're a little bit more ready for that challenge. And I just don't know if Ohio State, off that Michigan loss, is in the right mental place, put themselves in a spot to go win this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, it feels weird picking against Ohio State at home in a playoff
really
game
does.
like this. That does not happen
This
often.
green scenario.
Yeah, it feels a little bit weird, but at the same time, watching this Tennessee team, how they've developed over the year, they feel like the team that has that ability. They have that edge to them that they play well in these kind of situations.
Yeah, they've answered in some big moments. There's no doubt about it. And it's going to be one of those games where I think we'll know in the first 5 minutes who's going to have all the momentum.
Absolutely. We'll see if that slow start bugs Ohio State once again. But the next game to get to, kind of going on down the line in terms of who you'll play later on, Indiana and Notre Dame, a top 10 matchup. Their winner going to play number 2. Georgia, the Friday night game in South Bend. This should be a fun one. Notre Dame, 7-point favorites in this one. And there's a reason why a lot of people are excited for this one. I'm excited for it. Friday night, lows in the 20s for this thing, and a chance of snow potentially. Tyler, a snow playoff game is something I've been wanting to see for a long time. If we get it, I will be thrilled. We will be watching this, obviously, but
what a crazy environment that would be.
I mean, it's one of those where, you have Indiana moving up their graduation for this game.
Right, I think they would embrace that challenge.
Yeah, Notre Dame's trying to get the Friday night game to have their students still on campus. Tickets are insane prices for this game. First playoff game we've had between two teams in the same state. There's a lot of crazy factors going on into this thing, and you look at it, one stat that really does stick out to me, and I mean, it's the stat, I think, of the season. Notre Dame is the most efficient team in the country. Not one side of the ball. You look at everything together. Notre Dame, the most efficient, number 2 defense, number 12 offense. Special teams helps balance that out. Indiana's number 3 on offense when it comes to that efficiency rating, but number 21 on defense. But Indiana, their big strong point, they can shut the run game down like nobody else. Only 70 rushing yards a game that they give up. Indiana is incredible when it comes to just shutting down running games, but Notre Dame, they're the opposite. If you try to throw the ball on Notre Dame, things usually don't go well. They only give up 158 passing yards a game. Curtis Rourke and Elijah Surratt, the two big players you really need to know for Indiana. Justice Elson, their running back as well. Those have got to be the guys that get the job done. You have to find a way to challenge Notre Dame through the air. If you could get Justice Elson going, open up that run game, Notre Dame has to key in on that. Then you could try to throw the ball a little bit more. And if you're Notre Dame, I mean, Jeremiah Love and Riley Leonard, that's going to be the 1-2 punch for them. Love, of course, the running back, and Leonard at quarterback. You've got to be able to penetrate Indiana's defensive line. You've got to be able to get to them and get something going there. If you can do that, Notre Dame's got an amazing rushing attack, 225 yards on the ground. That's what they average. Indiana has to be able to stop Notre Dame from running the ball. If they can do that, they have a good opportunity to do just like Tennessee, I think, can. Go on the road and win in a tough environment. But something about this Notre Dame team, the way they've played over the season, and we've talked about this how many times, Tyler, this Notre Dame team is not that same team that lost to Northern Illinois. They have gotten better every single week, and they are one of the hottest teams in the country right now.
Yeah, and I think, that's kind of the factor here is that when you look at the scope of all these first-round teams, you could argue, probably with a good case, that Notre Dame, just off the momentum, is playing the best football at anybody in this first round that's playing, right? They've just been a different beast since that loss to Northern Illinois. That's what a good program, a good team's supposed to do, right? You lick your wounds, you say, okay, we've got a ways to go, a ways to climb, and they've done that. And I think it's unfortunate for Indiana because I feel like this team still wants to go out and prove a lot, right? Kind of prove some of those naysayers, and they could do that in this game. I'm kind of with you. I think this is going to be an awfully tough environment for Indiana to walk into and try to take a win. I got a feeling Notre Dame pulls this one out.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at in this one. I feel like Notre Dame just is the better team. I feel like most of the teams, whoever was going to draw Notre Dame in this first round, it was not going to go well for them. Just the way Notre Dame has kind of been this entire November, just beating people up and down. And it's just this Notre Dame team, I don't want to say they feel special because of the matchup they drew against Georgia. If they get past them, though, then you could really start to believe, oh, dang, I think this Notre Dame team can actually do it. They've got that final hurdle to clear, I think, looming in the horizon, but they don't overlook it. That's not who Notre Dame is this year. I think they get the job done in what should be a fun game against Indiana.
Yeah, ought to be a great one, especially if we get that snow like you're talking about. Boy, what an atmosphere for a playoff game.
Absolutely. I just want to see a snow playoff game, man. We've seen it how many times in the NFL. You get these snow games later in the year.
Yes.
We don't get college football games usually this far.
Yeah, no joke.
But it will be a fun atmosphere nonetheless. Another place where we're going to have a fun atmosphere. How about a playoff whiteout in Happy Valley? Just another fun sentence to say. Penn State, 8.5-point favorites against SMU. Another game that a lot of people, excited for. This is going to be the early morning game on TNT. Boy, that is not going to feel right seeing the TNT logo. I'm glad that they're having a game. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad to see the coverage kind of broken up between different networks. But the winner of this game will play Boise State. Penn State, number 4 in offensive efficiency, number 12 defensively. SMU, exactly the kind of flip-flop here. They're number 11 defensively, right there with Penn State, but their offense is way down at number 22. Penn State, what I love about them, what this team really does well is controls the line of scrimmage. I mean, they are just, whether it be offense or defense, the way you can kind of determine that, at least the way I see it, you look at what they do when it comes to the run game. How well your offensive line could get blocks off, how well your defensive line can control it. Penn State runs for 202, only gives up 103 in terms of yards per game. SMU, though, they're also great at containing the run. They only give up 93 yards per game. They've got a great running back in Brashard Smith. It's going to be up to the Nittany Lions at home. Drew Aller, Tyler Warren, amazing tight end, the best tight end in college football, Tyler Warren. He is going to have to play a massive role in this game. Drew Aller's going to have to step up and play and make some clutch throws. It's going to have to happen. SMU, not the best in terms of secondary. That's why that's the big key, at least for Penn State. And again, morning game, temperature's supposed to be 27 degrees. It's going to be a cold day. It's going to be a hard-hitting kind of day. Usually that factors in. You have that whiteout as well. Penn State has every advantage at their disposal in this one.
Is this the time when James Franklin finally wins a big game? Does he get it done? Everything's kind of lining up that way, Kate. I feel like you got the home advantage. You're going to have the weather. Not sure if SMU is necessarily built for that in terms of how they play, right? They want to be a little bit more up and down. That cold weather, as much as they'll tell you it won't, I promise you it affects those players, especially when your quarterback's throwing some bullets. So, I can Penn State be able to get it done? I think they got the horses here, right? You'd like to see them be able to get Tyler Warren unlocked in this game, but it really may come down to that ground attack for Penn State. And like you said, the important part, controlling that line of scrimmage. I think their offensive line, defensive line is what wins the day here for the Nittany Lions.
I think so too. I think Penn State has the ability, if they want to, with Nick Singleton. If you get Tyler Warren going and you get Nick Singleton going, you're 2/3 of the way there to a classic Big Ten bully ball kind of game. You have the crowd at your back, you have the weather at your back. You can line up, make this an old school, 20-17, 20-14 type of game. I think that's how Penn State gets it done.
Yeah, that feels about right. Good game, but in the end, Penn State probably pulls it out in a bit more of a low scoring affair.
Yeah, and I think this will also prove that SMU did deserve to be here, because I know no matter how
Sure.
SMU
Yeah.
loses this game, you're going to hear at least some talking heads say, "See, Alabama should have been here instead." No, we're not doing that. We're not having that discourse this year. It's not happening. I'm sorry.
Cade, as we've said, everybody will react perfectly normal to these wins and losses in the playoffs. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely. And the final game to get to, the one that I will not react normal to if a certain result I want to happen happens.
Oh
Texas
boy.
and Clemson, the Longhorns, a 12-point favorite in this one. By far the nicest weather you're going to have out of any of the games. Might as well mention it as well. It's going to be 61 and sunny in Austin for this one. Middle of the day, 3 o'clock Central Time. And Texas, if they win this game, or Clemson, whoever wins it, will play Arizona State. Texas, the most efficient defense in the country. Offense is only number 17. Clemson hasn't beat there with number 9 in terms of offensive efficiency, but their defense is at number 17. So that's kind of the battle to see there. Who's the better number 17, Tyler? Is it Texas or is it Clemson? The Horns offense, Tigers defense. Of course, the big storyline here, Cade Klubnik, quarterback for Clemson, back in Austin. That's where he went to high school at. But when you go up against a passing defense that only gives up 143 in terms of yards per game, that's the best passing defense in America in terms of yards per game. Texas only gives up 106 on the ground. Running back Phil Maffa, more of a power back. When you play those tougher defensive lines, that usually gives you a lot more problems, I feel like. And so this Clemson offense is going to have their work cut out for them. They have the ability, though, and this is where Clemson will have their shot. Texas has been a bit of a wounded duck, so to speak, in terms of Quinn Ewers. Still really has not been himself ever since he got injured earlier on in the year. You look at in terms of passing attacks, Texas, Clemson, similar statistically. Same with rushing. Clemson only 18 more yards than Texas. If Texas can get going in terms of whether it be Quinn Ewers making some big passes and able to show some mobility, just a little bit, enough to keep Clemson on their toes, you have the ability to win this game. And I don't want to say turn it into a blowout, but you have the ability to make Clemson think twice. If you can get someone like Wisner going in the running game, or let's see what Texas has in their receiving core, in this one. Maybe a Gunnar Helmet tight end plays well. Maybe Golden plays well. Maybe a Bond steps up. Someone is going to make a play for Texas in this thing. It's just, when does it happen? And if it takes a while to happen, Dabo Swinney's a good enough coach that Clemson will hang around and hang around and hang around, and then you start maybe overthinking things. Maybe a big turnover happens. Maybe Clemson finds a way to keep this closer than everyone thinks. But I think at the end of the day, no matter how close Clemson can keep it, Texas is just the better team than Clemson is this year.
I've been going back and forth on this one because I think we all agree Texas is kind of in that group of SEC teams where it's clear there's a lot of strengths about them. That defensive side of the ball is really, really good, obviously. That line's fantastic. But what's the quarterback battle here? You mentioned Cade Klubnik, right? He's coming home. He's looking to kind of show out, so to speak, right? And when he's playing well, and we saw it in the ACC title game, when he's playing on that high level, Clemson looks like a team, Cade, that belongs not only in the playoff, but could be a dark horse. When he's a little off, that's when the team kind of goes, right? They go with him. Um, so it's as he goes. Can Texas do enough to get him off his game? Defensively, I think they can, but I also feel like with Dabo's experience in these big type games, he's going to bring some twists. You give him this much time to try to really poke at the flaws of Texas, especially on that offensive side. I'm curious to see what he cooks up. I think this will be really a tight game. I think Texas is going to be sweating for a while here. Ultimately, after I thought about it, I do think Texas just has too much defensively for Clemson to deal with at the end of the day, and they make those plays to be able to pull it out. But I think this is more of a defensive statement for the Longhorns by the end of it.
Yeah, that's where I feel like this is going to be more like Texas's wins over Arkansas and Texas A&M, where it's a game where you know Texas is probably going to win. They just can't find that way to pull away, where the defense stands up, but the offense does not look super impressive. I think it's that kind of game for Texas. I think Clemson finds a way to cover that. I think the 12 that they have in favor of Texas is a bit ridiculous. I think people are just kind of assuming, oh, hey, Clemson's the lowest seeded team. They're 10-3. They have some not so good losses. Who cares? It's the playoffs. Dabo Swinney's going to find a way to get his team, like you said, amped up for this game. There's going to be some wrinkles. It's going to be a weird game. I feel like this is going to be the weirdest of the four, but Texas ultimately still finds a way to get this one taken care of.
And I hate to admit it, but that's where we're at. That's where we're at.
That is
Texas
where we're
just
at.
finding a way, negative.
Yeah, that's who they've been this year, though. But folks, as always, thank you for watching. We do always appreciate it. You know, like we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the video, feel free to like the video, especially if you made it this far. I would hope that means you enjoyed it. Maybe you didn't. I don't know. I can't determine for you. But as always, feel free, you know, besides liking the video, you can also hit the notification bell to always be notified when new videos come out. You can also subscribe to the channel. Currently at 115 subscribers now. Just trying to see if we can get to maybe 120, 125, somewhere in that range. Slowly continue to grow the channel, and then leave a comment down below. Tell us, you know, what we got right, what we got wrong, what you agree with, disagree with, all that fun stuff. But folks, until next time, have a good one, everybody, and Merry Christmas.